Good day and welcome back to another DBZ Dokkan Battle video. In this video we're going to be taking a look at the Battle-Hardened Foes, basically the new event, Stage 3. This one is against the, I think it's Dragon Ball Z edition. Yeah, so this is Dragon Ball Z edition. And yeah, these fights are pretty tough. I think all of them so far have been very, very difficult. The units hit pretty hard. They hit hard out the gate. It's not the easiest situation to deal with for anyone, let alone new players, but especially just units in general, because a lot of the times the fights are starting out so tough that there's very few units that can actually handle that level of difficulty. So anyway, let's talk about the team that I went with, and we'll talk a little bit about the first boss, Vegeta. So the team I went with is a superheroes team. So I have a strength Beast Gohan, double strength Beast Gohan, physical Super Gogeta, int Gamma 1, Gamma 2, AGL, MUI Goku, and int Vegeta. I also have the AGL Krillin in 18. And they're just great for 2-turn support. Now, I'm going to go through them in a bit more detail, but I want to talk first about the challenges of the boss Vegeta. So we have Vegeta Giant Ape. He's two phases. First phase is AGL Vegeta. Second phase is Vegeta Giant Ape Tech. In the first phase, he fires a 2.5 million super. That is AoE. So that's a really, really difficult challenge to deal with. You can stun him though. So if you are really struggling with it, you can stun him beforehand. You can also attack, lower him as well. But generally speaking, what I'll say is that it's probably the toughest. For me, it was the toughest section of the whole stage. Just because his desire to AoE super you in the first slot, and the RNG you get going into that, turn is always pretty tough, basically. So for me, that was the hardest phase of the whole fight. So Vegeta Giant Ape, 2.5 mil AoE, hits for about 1 million normal. And then you move into the actual Giant Ape portion where he supers for 3 million. But here he's now immune to stunning. Other than that, he's pretty much the same as base Vegeta. Same health and everything. So once your units are kind of built up, I found that the Giant Ape Vegeta, the Tech Giant Ape Vegeta component, was honestly way easier. Like, it just wasn't that difficult comparative to the first phase. I genuinely felt the first phase was like substantially harder. Just for me, it was definitely a much harder stage. I felt like it was way more difficult. So anyway, that's Vegeta. So just going back to the team for a bit. Obviously, the two Beast Gohans on separate rotations. I don't think that surprises anyone. Then what I liked to do was have the Int Vegeta alongside the one Gohan. Int Vegeta is just great, and once he builds up his attack and defense, you have a revive with him as well. Also, same reason I wanted to keep the MUI Goku away from Vegeta, just gave us more turns with revives on either turn, which acted as a safety mechanism a lot of the times. Then, we also had Super Gogeta, another great unit that was just really good to float around or sometimes switch into the prime position. Just depended on the enemy, like here against Frieza. I switched him in because obviously Frieza started out as Int. The nice thing with Super Gogeta is he provides an additional taunt, which I find is always very helpful, because between him, Gohan, and Gohan, you end up with 3 turns, basically, where you have taunts and all these different tools and mechanics available. So it makes quite a significant difference to how you play the game, because you end up having 3 free turns basically, which is honestly a lot easier to handle overall. So Frieza, very interesting. So Frieza final form, He seals your super attack, but he also hits for 3.4 million, has 1.2 million normals. Then he transforms into Frieza full power, hits for 3.6 million, and here he is immune to stunning, immune to sealing, but from the third turn from his entry, he will have attack of 50% as well. So very, very, very dangerous unit that can hit you very hard starting from that third turn. His damage reduction also goes up over time. So your main prerogative here will be to finish Frieza as quickly as possible. Again, not super tanky, 120 mil health. I know it sounds like a lot, but it's not so bad. And with no baseline damage reduction, you can hit him pretty hard right out the gate. So you can actually hit him really hard. And if you can get it right, use your active skills and kind of just push as much as possible in that first initial phase, should be able to give him some decent levels of damage. If you can't defeat him, or you can't manage to push him in that period, then yeah, it can be kind of tough for you, because he just gets progressively stronger, and then you're at the concern of being caught out. So it's just going to depend realistically a lot on your timings. Save your active taunts and everything, save your active skills, save both MUI Goku's active skills, save Vegeta's active skill. Use everything you can in this phase, because you really want to net out that Frieza full power as quickly as possible. The Gamma 1s and Gamma 2s are also another unit that I really like, as often I would set them to standby during the first phase of these fights, and then I would set them to use that active skill or that additional damage in the second phase, which is always nice, especially when you're needing that extra damage boost, just to get a little attack, do a little bit more damage. Obviously then you get the Gamma 1 form, which is also a pretty decent form as well. So yeah, for me, the Gamma 1 and Gamma 2s were a nice addition. Just lots of great support. They're obviously, the Vegeta fight causes them some issues. Same with the Krillin and Android 18. But aside from that, I found like Krillin and Android 18 were some really good support units that I really just needed to be able to help me out and give me like a really good foundation to doing damage and just staying on top of everything. So I really enjoyed using those two. I thought they brought some good synergy to the team, allowed the team to just function at a very high level. So now we're looking at Cell Perfect Form and then into Perfect Cell. So Cell Perfect Form, 2.8 mil in terms of super and 1 million in terms of normal. So technically a step down, but he has a tank of 50% up when HP is 40% or less. He also greatly lowers your defense with his super. So already he's doing things we don't like. Any enemy that lowers defense, not really a favorite, especially if you've got a team that's around building its defense. Doesn't really work that nicely. Then on top of that as well, also he boosts that attack a lot when below 40% health. So be mindful of that. Once you get them below the 40% threshold, or you're getting close to that 40% threshold, then you want to be very careful, because obviously then the risk is that he's now going to hit you with his big new and improved super, and you're not going to be aware of what's going on. So try your best to stay on top of that, be mindful of it, be aware of it, and yeah, just kind of let things flow, and obviously watch out. Of course, after Cell has been defeated, he'll come back, turn into Perfect Cell, and now this guy, definitely challenging in his own way. 1.2 mil normals, 3.6 super, which is around about the same as Frieza, so you might think, well, that's not really a big difference. His attack goes down with each attack he receives, but his defense goes up with each turn passed. So Cell progressively getting stronger in terms of defense, progressively getting weaker in terms of attack, but he does lower your defense. So again, he's doing the one mechanic that's really, really bad for players. It's the mechanic that really gives everyone a bit of issues, and I think lowering defense, probably the worst mechanic out of all of them. Really something that's just not nice and not fun for players to deal with, aside from like locking, switching, and things like that. So definitely, overall, what I would honestly suggest, at least to most players, is that you consider pretty much using things like your revive skills. Using items is also fine, but generally speaking, you want to have a little bit of evasion here. Even units with damage reduction, getting hit like once or twice with the super, like getting hit once with the super that has defense lowering, not the end of the world. Getting hit twice with the super that has defense lowering, very, very catastrophically bad for you. So you want to make sure that you have, basically a little bit of coverage for that, and that's going to be incredibly important in terms of determining, how you like handle everything basically. So yeah, that would be my honest like suggestion really. Basically is that be prepared, try to bring some kind of mitigation, evasion, revives, anything you can, because that lowering defense is going to cause you problems and you're going to not enjoy it basically. So I don't really want to sell you the dream, because it's going to be difficult to handle. Regardless of what's happening, it's going to be difficult to handle. So yeah, so that's Perfect Cell. Very challenging, although I must be honest, I didn't find them to be holistically super duper hard. He wasn't the most challenging boss. Like I said, I still feel like that Giant Ape Vegeta starting point was the most challenging boss, personally, just because of like his difficulty in general. But the AoE supers are a huge problem. Just very hard to handle. So yeah, and then finally we move on to the Boos. So we have Majin Buu Ultimate Gohan and then Majin Buu Kid. So Majin Buu Ultimate Gohan and Majin Buu Kid both have the highest amount of health in the stage, so 150 million each. Majin Buu Ultimate Gohan starts out with 1 million attack and 3 million super, but he gains 10% attack with each turn passed, so he can very quickly start to ramp up. It's very, very, very scary how quickly he can actually ramp up. The good news is he does recover health, but you can seal him. So although not ideal to let him build up, sealing him and letting yourself build up is also okay. As long as you can outpace him, it's not a bad idea to seal him potentially, and then give yourself an opportunity to build up and, just in general, kind of give yourself a good foundation towards like the next phase against Kid Buu, because yeah, the next phase is tough. So obviously you want to be in control of that. By letting yourself stack up, things do become a lot easier. In terms of Buu Kid, yeah, things are obviously very, very different there. 1.4 million normals, the highest we've seen so far right out the gate, and 4.2 million super, the highest we've seen out the gates as well. He nullifies his ceiling, stunning, he recovers HP. With each attack received, his attack goes up, but with each attack received, his defense goes down. The thing is, the defense going down isn't nearly as impactful as the damage going up, the attack going up. So you really want to, it sounds weird to say, you really want to hit hard with singular attacks, and try, if you can, not to bring units that do 1,000 multiple supers, unless they are attack lowering. So one really useful mechanic here is that you can attack lower him. So if you can bring units that fire a lot of attacks but are bringing multiple stacks of attack lowering to him, then it's going to be very impactful. It's going to be a lot better, it's going to be a lot smoother, and you should be able to make a significant impact on him by bringing that attack lowering. When you're not bringing attack lowering, then things become a little bit more difficult and a little bit less consistent, and it can give you some issues. So obviously my advice would be to have attack lowering, but also would be just to not do 14,000 attacks. Build him up immediately in one turn and have him incinerate you the next. That would be advisable. Of course, all of this is very tough, so I don't expect people to ace these first time. I'm using items for the first couple rounds just to get used to it, get used to the challenge and the difficulty. It's tough. These are tough.